So with the y equals mx plus b that we've been working on, the last thing that we can do really easily with it is graphing lines. Okay, how did we graph a line yesterday? On the quiz, how did you graph? You had to graph 2 lines on the back of the quiz. How did you do it? Anybody remember? That was a while ago. Megan? Very nice, a table of values. How would you describe that? Slow. There's a lot of punching numbers in it, a lot of like multiplying and adding and that kind of stuff. You got to come up with all these. It takes a long time, plot all these points. It's not the best system. It's good to look for patterns, but it's not the best way of graphing lines. But once we have y equals mx plus b as a tool of our understanding, then we can really graph lines. Okay, quickly. So y equals mx plus b. M is the slope, thank you. B is the y-intercept, good. So how do we graph using y equals mx plus b? We're going to do it in 2 steps. We're going to plot, so you want to write this down, the y-intercept. That's your first step. Step 2, we're going to use the slope, rise and the run, to find more points. Okay? Let's see this in action. So and everybody, yeah, it looks like you're all writing this down. That's good. You want to write this down. So for the first one, we're going to identify the slope and identify the y-intercept. Can somebody do that? Okay. -3/2. Good. And -4 is the y-intercept. Nice. Everybody good with that? Okay, so watch if you like, watch carefully. My step number 1, plot the y-intercept. Y-intercept is -4. Y-intercept is always on the y-axis, so I go to -4 on that vertical axis. Some people are asking, what about x? No, that's something else. So you don't put the point on the x-axis. That would be wrong if you did it that way. So always put it on the y. That's what it is, the y-intercept. B is always the y-intercept. I put it there, and then I use the slope to find more values. So slope is always rise over run. Start here, go up 1, 2, 3. Which way do I want to go, left or right? Yep. Left, very good. 1, 2. Put a point. 2 points is not enough. It's so easy to find more points with the slope. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I keep counting like a staircase. 3 points is the minimum. 4 or 5 is even better. Okay, and then I'm going to draw the line. And we're done. Okay, let's do the next one. Oh, what's different about the next? Everybody okay with that? It always comes down to slope and y-intercept. Like you really, when you're looking at y equals mx plus b or an equation of a line, you got to be breaking it up into what is m, what is b, what does that mean, how do I use it, what does that tell me about the graph? That's how your thinking has to go. Does that make sense? That's why we write it down. There's a reason why we do everything we do in math class. There's a reason why we write it down. It forces you to think, what is the slope? What is the y-intercept? Okay? What's different about the next one that we're going to graph? It's not in the right y equals mx plus b form. This is why we did that stuff that was tricky a few days ago. How do you put it in y equals mx plus b form? Like, this is why we practice that, even though it was hard. The nice thing is it's going to be kind of the same every time we do it. But you got to do it enough times for it to become familiar. And so you start to see that it's y equals mx plus b, and you just have to rearrange it. And like I said, it's kind of the same every time. So let's give it a try. So what am I going to do first? I'm going to move the 4x by subtracting it from both sides. I'm trying to write y equals mx plus b. So I write what's left. Negative 4x minus 6. Does that make sense? Am I done? No, because it's not y equals mx plus b, right? So what do I have left to do? Divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2. So if you want to watch for one more quick review from when we did this before, that's gone. Y equals negative 4 divided by negative 2 is 2. Negative 6 divided by negative 2 is positive 3. Now I can plot those points. So, or I can use, now I can draw this line. So plus 3. And then I'm going to go up 2 over 1. And look, it's positive slope, so I'm going the other way. Down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. Get a bunch of lines. Whoops. Awesome, thank you. And I'm done. Okay. Oh, I should have done this. This was, from the quiz yesterday, was actually pretty good. Like, it wasn't quite as good as the first quiz, but it was pretty good. This was the trickiest thing. A lot of people, got a little bit stuck on this kind of the question. But had a general sense of what to do. So we're still going to keep practicing and keep at it. Any questions? Everybody got that done? Got the 2 lines drawn? Look like my 2 lines? Okay. We're just gonna read this and chat about it quickly. This is something that's new to grade 10. What is a linear system? A linear system is like when you're graphing 2 lines together on the same grid. Okay? Does that make sense? And so this is one of the big ideas of grade 10 math is linear systems. So keep that in mind. A linear system is something that can be solved, like an equation. It has an answer. What is the answer? It's where the 2 lines cross. We take a look at this picture. Those 2 lines cross in one place. So this question has a single answer. Does that make sense? Does anybody know what the answer is? You take that hand back? It's okay. What's the answer? What do you think? Negative 2, there's another part to it though. That's the first part. Negative 2, and then down negative 1. Very good, right? So a point has 2 coordinates. And so what we would say here is if we were solving this, we say, therefore, the point of intersection, or the POI, is negative 2 comma negative 1. And see how I put it in brackets so we know it's a point. That's how I state the solution. We're going to do this again, and we'll talk about that again. But it has a solution. It's where the 2 lines cross. This is an important idea. Okay? And so we can solve a system by graphing the 2 lines and looking at where they cross. Does that make sense? That means when we're graphing, our lines will always cross in a nice place. If you graph and you get something like this where your answer is not clear, you have made some kind of mistake. Okay? I will make sure that the lines cross like this one did at a nice point. And then you just read the point. Don't forget to state the solution. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to try to graph both of these. So it always really helps to start by doing this. You're going to do it for both. The first one might have a little trick to it. Some people are going to have to think about it. That's okay. The second one you can probably do really easily. So if you want, you can do that one first. Find the slope and the y-intercept of both and graph them both. And then we'll talk about it and take it up. We're doing 2 things today. We're practicing graphing with y equals mx plus b instead of a table of values. And when we graph both lines, we're going to look at where they cross. Yeah. So that's when you're going first. And equals b. Figure out what those values are for each of those equations. B is the Y-intercept backwards. You got those backwards. Negative 1 is correct, but it's actually up. See how it's flipped? See how this is, we always write x plus 1 to the left one? And this thing in front of us, which we call it convection unit, is in the that part's usually the first. See how this one's written properly, so it's like easy. This one was written properly, so it's easy. Somebody messed this one. If somebody messed this one up. So that's why in math, like that's what teachers should write it right. Write it right. As soon as you're done, the rest of the book out loud. What is this looking like? Let's do.
Excuse this interruption. Just an important announcement related to our school smoking and vaping policy. All students are reminded that you need to be off school property in order to smoke or vape. Our smoking designated area is on Strasburg Road sidewalk by the Grand River bus stop area only. Other areas are subject to bylaw enforcement penalties as well as school penalties. So just a reminder, be advised there's no smoking or vaping in the school or on school property. Consequences for these infractions may be suspensions and confiscation of smoking and vaping materials. Please make smart decisions related to these activities. Thank you.
No, it's negative 1. You have it right. This is a negative 1. But the number beside the x is always the same. Remember by a sign. Okay, so I want to talk about this first one. It's amazing, guys, listen. It's amazing how something so small is enough to mess people up. If I look at the second one, it's clear, I think, or clearer, that this is the slope, the number beside the x, and this is the y-intercept, the b. We call that a constant, or it's a number all by itself. Oh, the bell's about to ring. So this one should be, just hold on, we'll finish this, but just watch for a second, okay? Should be 1/2 and 2. So what about this one? Well, somebody wrote this one backwards. Isn't that the way it should be written? +5 and -x, like that, which means b would be 5. And what is m? It's -1. Okay, we will continue that. Leave me your homework, that sheet, the handout from yesterday. That's the homework that I want you to leave. And I also want you to do, a few of those. Do some work in MSIP. Do a few of those on a piece of paper because I'll collect that tomorrow. So for this first line, we were just finishing noticing how when the line is written sort of out of order, people think math is really picky, but there's a reason why we're picky is because when we write it out of order like that, all of a sudden people really struggle. So this one down here, we can see the slope and we can see the y-intercept very clearly. Y = mx + b. M is the number you're multiplying by x. Doesn't matter where the x is, that's it. B is the number you're just adding, right? That's the whole point. So in this case, I had to kind of rewrite them, or you don't have to necessarily rewrite it, but we did rewrite it. It makes it easier to visualize. I have to sort of do it in my head and figure out that the slope was -1 and the y-intercept was 5. And again, this one was fairly easy. So then what do? Well, we're going to graph them. So I start, remember we talked about these steps. So I start with the y-intercept, and then I use the slope to find some other points. So if I go, the slope, what is -1? What's the rise and the run if my slope is -1? This is something a lot of people, I'm sure you've seen this before, but people continue to sort of struggle or be confused by it. If I was going to rewrite 2 as a fraction, how would I write it? 2 over 1. What about 3? 3 over 1. What about 4? 4 over 1. So what about 1? 1 over 1, right? That's something you really need to know. You see it a lot when you're doing this kind of stuff. People always get confused when they see a whole number, don't know how to turn it into a slope. What's the rise? What's the run? So this is like -1 over 1. So if my rise is 1 and then my run is 1, I go this way to make sure that the line's leaning to the left. So there's one of my lines. So you can go ahead and do this for yours. And then the other one is up 2. And then rise of 1, run of 1. So 2. Up 1 over 2. Up 1 over 2. Down 1 over 2. Down 1 over 2. And the whole point of this was to find the point of intersection, which we found. Oh, no, we say, therefore, point of intersection is, somebody read that? 2, 3. Yeah, very good. 2. So the x is 2 and the y is 3. So the point of intersection POI is 2, 3. That's how we finish these questions. We're stating our answer. We're supposed to find where they cross. Don't forget, a lot of people do all the awesome work and then forget to just do the easy part, writing the answer. Okay, so make sure you do that too. That makes sense. And then when you're doing this on a quiz or a test and you're graphing, if you're graphing with the table of values, you do all the work in the table of values. If you're graphing with y = mx + b, you have to write m = b = that's all. Okay, but that's how you're like showing your work. Is that I did it by m and b. So you just write them out and then graph it and you're done. Make sense? Okay, let's do one more. So you can go ahead. You don't have to wait for me. Don't just wait. You go right to it. Especially for the first one, m equals b equals. So you're filling those in, and then you can graph it. Somebody tell me the slope, please. Okay. -2, nice. And what does that mean the rise and the run is? Yeah, 2 over 1. So rise of 2, run of 1, and it's negative. Very, very nice. And what's the y-intercept? -4. So we can graph this line easily. So I go down 4. And if I go up 2 and I go right 1, that's going to lean the wrong way. Whoops, erase, up 2, go the other way 1, and now my line is leaning to the left. Has a negative slope. Whoops, that's not going to be a good line. Okay. What's different about the next one? Fine? Right, very good. Here's something that some people might do. So watch carefully. They might say the slope is 4 and the y-intercept is -6. And there's some good thinking there because you're recognizing some patterns, but what's wrong with that? Jill, do you know? You have to rearrange it first. In other words, if it's not in y equals mx plus b form, you can't see the slope and y-intercept right away. Like, you just can't. It's not there. Okay, so this is not the slope and y-intercept. So how do we rearrange? This is from last week. It is tricky. This is why we were learning that last week, because now in order to graph, we have to be able to do this. Very nice. Subtract 4x from where? Both sides? And add 6. Very good. So then 4x minus 4x is gone, and 6 minus 6 is gone. And I rewrite this as 2y equals -4x plus 6. We want this to look like y equals mx plus b. So I wrote x first, and I wrote the number next. You want to start recognizing that in y equals mx plus b, there's a y. It's not 2y, it's y, but there's a y. There's an x part that has your slope in it, and there's a number part that has your y-intercept. And a lot of you are starting to recognize that for sure, but you want to be thinking about that the whole way. People think, oh, well, this isn't y equals mx plus b, I'm rearranging. No, it's the same thing. It's all related. It's all the same stuff. And if you think about the rearranging, if you already think about y equals mx plus b, oh, there's my x part, I'll put it over here. Like, if you're thinking that way, sometimes it really, really helps. Okay, Corbett. So now you've got to divide by 2. So even this, my slope is not -4. Why is it not -4? Because this says 2y. And y equals mx plus b means y equals mx plus b. Not even negative y, not y squared or anything weird like that. Just y. It has to be that way. Okay? Good. So we divide by 2, and that could look like 2 different things. So if you want to watch quickly, I could go like this. It means you divide the whole part of both sides by 2. But the nicer way of showing that, I think, is you got to divide every every individual part of it by 2. Like I can't just divide 1 by 2 and not the other. Some people did this or this kind of a thing on the quiz. That doesn't work. You can't do that. You got to divide by everything by 2 like that. Okay, and then rewrite that, simplify. So negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay, and now I graph this one in a different color. So I go up to 3, 1, 2, 3. And I go up 2, and I go, this one's negative as well, so over 1. Get a bunch of points. Everybody okay with that? Graphing lines with y equals mx plus b. Some rearranging here can be tricky. Now what happened? What were we supposed to be finding? Who can tell me what we were supposed to be actually, what the point of this was? Okay, good. Where it's up there. Supposed to be, that's very good. Supposed to be finding where the lines cross the POI, but there isn't one. So there's a few reasons why this might happen. One of them, maybe I did a bad job making up the question, and they're going to cross like, and it's off the graph, and it's my fault. Bad question, or you made up your own question or something, and like, it's just not going to work. The other one is maybe you made a mistake graphing, and that can happen, or made a mistake rearranging, and that can happen, and so your lines don't cross because you made a mistake. What's the other reason, and what's the reason in this case? Oh, what were you going to say? And you were going to say? Right, 2 different ways of saying the same thing. The lines are parallel because they have the same slope. Corbin, are you listening? These are 2 parallel lines. How do we know they're parallel? They have the same slope. Think about it. I got 2 points, one on one line, one on the other. They both go up 2 and over 1. Up 2 and over 1. Up 2 and over 1. They're never going to cross. They're like train tracks. Imagine you had train tracks and you're on this train and then the train tracks cross. That would not be a good thing, right? So they're parallel lines. They're never going to cross. Same slope. So what does that mean about this question? Is it a mistake? No, it was on purpose. We're just thinking about the possibilities. So therefore, there's no solution or no POI. That's what you would say in this case. Okay? Everybody okay with that? Any questions? Okay, one more. You don't have this question, flip over on the back of your page. And the first one's done. It's in y equals mx plus b form. Like if you just look at these two, you can see one of them's in y equals mx plus b form and one of them isn't. Okay, so you can state the slope and y-intercept of one and rearrange the other and state the slope and y-intercept of the other. Okay, go. Take a minute to do that. Okay, so there's all different sort of levels that you can get. Most people got this first part. What is M? Taylor, what's M? And what's B? Sadie, can you tell me what B is for the first one? 1, good. Whoops. What would be my first? So remember, we're trying to make this look like y equals mx plus b. The b part, it's not b quite yet, but the b part, that number, is already over there. So I don't need to do anything to it. I don't move it. It's not becoming positive. It's supposed to be on the right side. It's on the right side. I'm going to leave it alone. I need to move the x over there, don't I? So how do I do that? Mike? Subtract x. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides. I want to show you something else here. So you can just watch for a minute. This is what a lot of people would do, -2 minus x. It's not wrong if you do that. But remember what we're trying to do, mx plus b. So don't we usually write the x part first? So why not make your life easy and do that? Start getting used to writing it in the same order every time. The whole point of that is you get familiar, you see those patterns, and it just becomes easier. You start doing it in your sleep, and you start recognizing all these things for what they are. Now, here's the next step, and you might know what to do, but then actually doing it is the hard part. So those are two really important different questions. I know what to do, I just don't know how. Or maybe you're like, I don't even know what to do. Right? Those are different things. So in your head, try to think about where you're at with those things. Ryan, what do you think we do? Divide everything by -2. Very nice. And some parts of this are going to be easy and some parts are going to be a little bit harder. So that part's easy, they're gone. This part over here is easy. -2 divided by -2 is +1. But what is -x over 2? Well, that's like -1 over, or sorry, -2, yeah, over -2 x, isn't it? That's what it should be like. So this ends up, a -1 over -2 is just 1/2. So this ends up being 1/2 x. Okay, so now we can state our slope and state our y-intercept. Somebody else tell me what the slope is. Vanessa, can you tell me what the slope is? Very nice. And what's the y-intercept, Michael? 1. And what happened here? Same line. Same slope, means they're parallel, but same y-intercept too. It's the same line. If I graphed it, it'd be a line on top of a line. Like when I looked at these originally, they didn't look like the same equation. But when I rearrange, it turns out it's the same line. Very interesting. So we just go, therefore, for us, same line. Whoops. What it actually means, so in the first example, we had like one solution. They crossed at a point. We had one answer. The next one, we had no solution because they're parallel. This one actually means there's infinite solutions. Every point on that line is a solution because that's where the two lines cross or meet or touch each other. Everywhere on the line, right? So it's actually infinite solutions kind of thing, but we're just going to say same line. Don't write this down. Just going to quickly summarize what I just said. Number of solutions, okay, would be like 0. And that would be a graph that looks like this. Two lines that, might just cross at a point. And so if I had two lines that were like y equals 2x plus 3 and y equals -3 over 4x minus 5, I know those are going to cross at a single point because they have positive slope, negative slope. They're leaning different ways. They're just going to cross, right? Or I could have number of solutions. Oh, sorry, that's one solution. What am I thinking? That's one solution. Or I could have number of solutions 0 if I have two parallel lines. What does that look like? Y equals 2x plus 3, y equals 2x plus 4. Same slope, different y-intercept. Or I could have like infinite, and what would that look like? It would just look like a single line And it'd be two equations that are the same, or they might not look the same, but if you rearrange, they'd be the same. Does that make sense? Any questions? So we're going to practice a little bit more graphing our own lines, and part of the practice will be finding the point of intersection. Before we start that, you're going to do an activity on your Chromebook in a minute, and it's going to look something like this. So the first thing I want you to do is I need you to come up with a question for me. So somebody give me a slope, any slope. Joe. -2/3. I love it. So I just see how I type it in like this. You don't have to do this every time. Type it in, but you might end up doing that. So negative. There's my slope, -2/3. There's the decimal version. Somebody else, give me a y-intercept. 10 billion. No, that's not on the graph. 6. Thank you. Okay. So I have a y-intercept of 6. Here's my equation. Here's what you're going to do. When you're graphing, you're going to use the point tool. When you're graphing a line, where do you start? At the y-intercept, which is 6. So I'm going to go up to 6, and I'm going to put a point. And what's my next step? You follow the slope, use the slope to find more points. So I'm going to go down 2, and do I want to go left or right? I'm going to go right, so my line is sloping with a negative slope 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I could go the other way, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And if I really want, I can drag around and do more points. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and when you've got a handful of points, 3 or 4, you just check your answer. And every one of those points should be exactly on that line. If one of them's off, you made a mistake. Or if the points are going in a totally different direction, you made some kind of, probably small, but some kind of mistake. Okay, so the link to this is in the classroom. It is not this. It's right here. So it's that top one, graphing lines with y equals mx plus b. You just click on it, obviously. And you just start at the first one. So you do that first, and then the work, which I have a handout for you to do the work on, but the questions are here. This is the work. Why?